The Sands Hotel and Casino sat on the Las Vegas Strip like a temple. December 1965. 12 years before the wrecking ball would come for it. 23 years before the implosion. Right then, that night, it was the center of the world. The center of Sinatra's world, anyway. The high-stakes blackjack room was on the second floor. You took an unmarked elevator. You showed the operator your face. If he knew you. The doors opened to a long, carpeted corridor that smelled like cigar smoke and money. At the end of the corridor was a brass-handled mahogany door. Behind the door was the room. Inside, 12 blackjack tables. And 6 craps tables. A small private bar in the back run by a Cuban man named Rinaldo who had been mixing drinks for the Sands since 1952. The room was lit by 3 enormous brass chandeliers that hung from a hand-carved ceiling. The carpet was so thick that you walked on it like you walked on a meadow. The walls were paneled in dark Honduran mahogany. The whole room smelled of leather and bourbon and old paper money. If you were in that room, you were either rich or you were spending someone else's money. There was no third category. That night, December 11th, 1965, both ends of the room were occupied. At the back, table 7, Frank Sinatra was holding court. He'd been there for 6 hours. Around him sat Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and a man named Henry Silver who occasionally rode along with the group. 3 cocktail waitresses moved in slow orbits around the table, replacing drinks before they were finished. The pile of chips in front of Sinatra was the size of a small mountain. He had been winning steadily for 2 hours and losing steadily before that. Either way, the table was loud. At the front, table 4, John Wayne sat alone. He had come to Las Vegas for 3 days. He had not come to gamble. He had come to think. His doctor in California had given him news that morning by telephone. The cancer he had beaten in 1964 had left a shadow on a recent X-ray. It might be nothing. It might be something. They wanted him to come in for more tests in January. Wayne had hung up the phone. He had told his secretary to book him 3 days at the Sands. He had not told his wife. He had not told his children. He had gotten on a plane and flown to Las Vegas to think about what he wanted to do for the next part of his life. He was 58 years old. He had a glass of Old Crow bourbon in front of him on the green felt. He had not bought any chips. He was not playing. He was just sitting at the table, watching the dealer deal to 2 other quiet men who had been there as long as he had. He had walked into the room 30 minutes earlier. He had not seen Sinatra at the back table. The lighting in the room was such that the front and back tables were almost separate worlds. He would not have cared anyway. He and Sinatra knew each other. They had been at the same parties. They had been at the same charity events. They had said hello to each other at the Oscars. They were not friends. Wayne respected Sinatra's voice. He did not particularly respect Sinatra the man. Sinatra knew this. And Sinatra did not respect Wayne's politics. He did not particularly respect Wayne the man. They were cordial. That was as far as it went. But Sinatra had been drinking for 6 hours, and Sinatra had a problem with men who did not bow. It started small. Around 9:30 in the evening, Sinatra called for another round. The cocktail waitress, a young woman named Gloria De Matteo, began moving toward the bar at the back. As she passed the front of the room, she noticed John Wayne at table 4. She smiled at him politely. She had served him twice already. She was the kind of waitress who remembered names. When she got back to Sinatra's table with the new round, Sinatra noticed that her smile had been directed somewhere on her way back. He was the kind of man who noticed things like that. He was sharp in that way. He was always tracking the room. Who's down there, sweetheart? Who, Mr. Sinatra? You smiled at somebody. Who'd you smile at? Gloria looked back over her shoulder. She gestured. That's Mr. Wayne, Mr. Sinatra. He's down at table 4. Sinatra turned in his chair. He looked across the long room. He squinted through the chandelier light and the cigar smoke. He could see, even from there, the broad shoulders, the worn brown felt hat hanging on the back of the chair, the unmistakable angle of the head. Duke Wayne, he said. He said it loud enough for the rest of his table to hear. Dean Martin looked up. He looked down the room. He looked back at Sinatra. That's the Duke, all right. What's he doing here? Maybe he's gambling, Frank. He's not gambling. There's no chips in front of him. Sammy Davis Jr. craned his neck. Looks like he's just sitting there. He's just sitting there. Sinatra picked up his whiskey. He swirled it. He took a long drink. You know what I don't like about Duke Wayne, fellas? Nobody answered. They had all heard versions of this monologue before. They knew there was no good answer. There was only sitting still and waiting for it to be over. What I don't like about Duke Wayne is that he thinks he's better than other men. He doesn't say it. He doesn't write it. He just sits there, like he's sitting there right now. Just sitting, and the sitting tells you. The sitting says, I'm a better man than you. I don't need to talk. I don't need to drink. I don't need to gamble. I just sit here and I'm better. He took another drink. I invited him to a party 3 years ago. Bel Air, big party. 300 guests. Bobby Kennedy was there. Marilyn before she... big party. Duke Wayne sent his regrets. He didn't come. 2 years ago, I invited him to another one. Same thing. Sent his regrets. Last year, didn't even bother to RSVP, just didn't come. Maybe he was busy, Frank. He wasn't busy. He just doesn't come to my parties. Dean Martin looked at Sammy Davis Jr. They had seen this before. There was nothing to do about it. When Sinatra got into one of these moods, the only thing was to wait it out. Or distract him with a song. Or hope someone else came along. Sinatra was not waiting it out tonight. He stood up. You know what? It's the season of forgiveness, gentlemen. Christmas. Let's go say hello to the Duke. Let's be Christian about this. Frank. What? Sit down. I'm going to be Christian, Dean. I'm going to walk over there and say hello and forgive him. That is what a Christian gentleman does. Sammy Davis Jr. stood up too. He put a hand on Sinatra's arm. Sammy was the most practical man at the table when it came to other men's tempers. Frank, don't go over there. Why not? Because you don't want to. I do want to. You don't, Frank. But Sinatra was already moving. He was a small man in a midnight blue tuxedo, weaving through the tables with the slight unsteadiness of a man who had been drinking for 6 hours, and the practiced grace of a man who had been drinking for 6 hours hundreds of times before. He reached table 4. He stopped about 4 feet from Wayne. He stood there. Wayne did not look up. He was watching the dealer deal. Duke, Wayne looked up. His face did not change. Frank, mind if I join you? It's a free room. Sinatra pulled out the chair across from Wayne. He sat down. He set his whiskey tumbler on the green felt. He smiled the famous Sinatra smile that could melt a teenage girl in 1944 and that, on this night in 1965, had a slight crack in it from too much bourbon. You're in my town. Duke, I'm in Howard Hughes's town, Frank. He owns this place. Last I checked. Howard Hughes owns the building. I own the room. That's so. That's so. Wayne picked up his bourbon. He took a small sip. He set it down. All right, Frank, the room is yours. What do you want? I want to know why you don't come to my parties. Beg pardon? My parties, Duke. I've invited you to 3. You've never come. 3 invitations. 3 regrets. I want to know why. Wayne looked at him for a long moment. Frank, I don't care for parties. That's a lie. It's not a lie. You go to John Ford's parties. You go to Henry Hathaway's parties. You went to that thing for Howard Hawks last June. You go to other parties. You don't go to mine. I go to parties for old friends, Frank. You and I aren't old friends. I've been trying to fix that, Duke. That's what an invitation is. It's an attempt to fix that. Some things don't get fixed, Frank. The smile on Sinatra's face hardened. What's that supposed to mean, Duke? It means I respect your voice. I do. You sing better than anybody alive. But I don't care for the company you keep. I don't care for the way you treat the people who work for you. I don't care for the things you do when you think nobody is watching. So I don't come to your parties. There's no fixing that. It is what it is. Inom. The room had gone quiet. The men at adjacent tables had stopped talking. The dealer at table 4 had quietly stopped dealing. The cocktail waitresses had drifted to the edges of the room. Rinaldo, behind the small bar in the back, was wiping a glass without looking down at it. Sinatra's smile was completely gone now. You're calling me out. Duke? I'm telling you why I don't come to your parties, you asked. I'm telling you, you think you're better than me. I think I'm different than you, Frank. I don't think different is better. You think you're better than me. Just like everybody else does. The big Duke, the big American. Sitting there in your hat and your boots like you came down from a mountain, Frank. What? Go back to your table. Sinatra stood up. He grabbed his whiskey tumbler. You don't tell me what to do. You don't tell me what to do, Duke. Go back to your table, Frank. Sleep this off. Tomorrow you and I will pretend this didn't happen. I won't tell anybody. You won't tell anybody. We'll go on like we always have. That's the best for both of us. You're trying to be charitable, Duke. You're trying to be the Christian. I'm the Christian. I came over here to be the Christian, all right? You came over here to be the Christian. Now go back. Don't you tell me, Duke. Sinatra was loud now. The whole room could hear him. He was not just at table 4 anymore. He was performing for a room. Wayne picked up his bourbon. He took another small sip. He set it down. He did not look at Sinatra. I'm not telling you anything. Frank, I'm just sitting here. You're sitting there judging me. I'm sitting here drinking my bourbon. You're judging me with your eyes. You're judging me with your face. You're judging me by sitting there. You think you're better. Wayne did not respond. That was the moment Jimmy Russo came across the room. Russo had been standing at his post by the carved mahogany pillar near table 7. He had watched Sinatra get up. He had watched Sinatra walk to table 4. He had watched the conversation from the start. He had been hired 6 months earlier, paid $200 a week to keep Sinatra safe. His instructions from his employer were explicit. If anybody disrespects Mr. Sinatra, you handle it. He decided that what was happening at table 4 was disrespect. He started walking. Russo was 42 years old. He was 6'4". He weighed 280 pounds. He had been a heavyweight contender in the late 1940s, fighting out of Newark, New Jersey. His record had been 22 wins, 4 losses, 16 of the wins by knockout. He had lost a decision to Joe Walcott in 1949. After that fight, his trainer had retired him. He had drifted into security work. He had worked for nightclub owners, then for a well-known restaurateur, then, in 1965, for Sinatra. He had broken 3 men's jaws in the line of duty. He had cracked 4 ribs. He had once, in San Diego, picked up a heckler in a one-arm headlock and carried him out of a venue while the man kicked the air. He was very good at his job. He walked across the carpeted casino floor toward table 4. He moved quietly for a man his size. The patrons at the intermediate tables saw him coming. They went silent. Some of them looked away. Some of them watched. They knew what was about to happen. They had seen Russo work before. He arrived behind Wayne's chair. He put his big right hand on the back of the chair. Mr. Sinatra is talking to you. Wayne did not turn around. He continued looking at his bourbon. I heard him. Then you'll show some respect when you answer him. I'm answering him! You'll stand up when you answer him. Wayne sighed. He took another small sip of bourbon. He set the glass down. Son, take your hand off my chair. Stand up. Take your hand off the chair, son. I'm not going to ask you again. Russo did not take his hand off the chair. Instead, he reached around with his left hand. He grabbed the front of Wayne's cream-colored Western shirt by the collar. He bunched the fabric in his thick fist. He started to pull Wayne up. Sinatra, still standing by the table, said, Jimmy! Sinatra had said it as a warning. Even drunk, even angry, Sinatra had been around violence enough to know that you did not put hands on John Wayne. You did not put hands on John Wayne even when John Wayne was sitting calm at a blackjack table at the Sands at midnight. You especially did not put hands on him then. But Russo was already in motion. He pulled Wayne up by the collar. What happened in the next 4 seconds was witnessed by approximately 37 people. Their accounts varied in detail. They agreed on the basic facts. Wayne came up from his chair. But he did not come up the way Russo intended. Russo had pulled him up to a half-standing position, off balance, vulnerable. But somewhere in the rising, something shifted. Wayne's left foot moved a half-step back. His right knee bent slightly. His left hand came up under Russo's wrist, between the bodyguard's grip and Wayne's own throat. He did not strike. He turned his hand. The motion was small. It applied pressure to the soft underside of Russo's wrist, just below the heel of the hand. Where the nerves run shallow, Russo's grip opened involuntarily. In the same motion, Wayne's right hand came up and across, palm flat. It struck Russo just below the sternum. Not a punch. A push, a shove. But it was placed exactly. It hit the diaphragm at exactly the angle that drives all the air out of the lungs and locks the muscles into spasm. Russo gasped. He stepped back. Wayne stepped forward. His left hand caught Russo's right shoulder. His right hand came across Russo's body and caught the bodyguard's left elbow. He pivoted on his left foot. He used the bodyguard's own falling momentum. Russo went down. He did not go down hard. He went down deliberately. Wayne lowered him almost gently. The bodyguard hit the carpet on his back, gasping for air, eyes wide, completely confused about how he had gotten there. Wayne let go of him. He took a half step back. He smoothed the front of his cream-colored western shirt, where Russo had bunched it. He looked down at the man on the floor, then he looked at Sinatra. He did not say anything. He did not need to. Sinatra was standing at the edge of table 4, with his whiskey tumbler still in his hand. His face was the color of old paper. His mouth was open. The blue of his eyes had gone glassy in the warm light. He looked like a man who had just watched a magic trick and was trying to figure out where the rabbit had gone. The room was silent. The whole room. Ronaldo had stopped wiping his glass. The dealer at table 4 was holding the deck of cards in mid-air. The cocktail waitress Gloria De Matteo had her hand over her mouth. Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. were standing at table 7, having half risen from their chairs, frozen at the same moment. The 4 seconds had felt like a long time. Now the silence felt longer. Wayne sat back down. He picked up his bourbon. He took a small sip. He set it down. He nodded at the dealer. "My friend," he said, calm as anything. "Whenever you're ready." The dealer was a thin man in his 50s named Edgar Holmstead. He had been dealing cards in Las Vegas since 1948. He had seen many things. He had not seen this. His hands were shaking. He looked down at the deck. He looked at the green felt. He started to deal. At the floor of table 4, Russo started to roll over onto his side. He was breathing again. Not well, but breathing. He coughed once, hard. 2 casino security men in dark suits came across the floor. They had been at the back of the room near the brass-handled door. They knew Russo. They had worked with Russo. They lifted him carefully under the arms. They began to walk him toward the side door that led to the back corridor and the staff areas. Russo went without resistance. He went without looking at Wayne. He went without looking at Sinatra. The 2 security men carried him out. His big shoulders slumped between them, and the brass-handled door at the side of the room closed behind them, with a soft click. Sinatra was still standing at the edge of table 4. Wayne did not look at him. He was watching the dealer deal. The dealer dealt him a card. Wayne had not bought chips. The dealer realized this halfway through the deal. He hesitated. Wayne reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a $100 bill. He laid it on the felt. The dealer nodded gratefully and continued. Sinatra found his voice. "Duke," Wayne looked up. "Yes, Frank?" That should not have happened." "No, Frank, it shouldn't have. He acted on his own." "I didn't tell him to do that." "I know you didn't, Frank. He's your man. He thought he was doing his job. I don't blame him." "I don't blame you, Duke. Frank, go back to your table. Sit down, have a drink. Tomorrow this didn't happen. We agreed, remember?" "We didn't agree. We're agreeing now." Sinatra stood there for another long moment. He was breathing in and out very slowly. The flush was coming back to his face, but he was trying to keep it down. Some of his old composure was returning. He was very, very good at composure when he needed to be. He set his whiskey tumbler down on Wayne's table. The amber liquid sloshed against the side of the glass. "All right, Duke. All right, Frank. I'm going to leave." "That's a good idea." "Not just the table. The hotel. Whatever you want to do, Frank. I'm going to leave. Tonight. I'm not going to come back for a while. That's your business. You won't tell anybody about this." "No. Frank, I won't tell anybody." Sinatra nodded. He turned. He walked back across the long room toward table 7. The Rat Pack watched him come without saying a word. They had heard the conversation. They had seen the 4 seconds. They had seen Russo on the floor. Sinatra got to his table. He picked up his black fedora hat from the chair beside his own. He put it on. He adjusted the brim. He looked at Dean Martin. "Dino, we're done for the night. Frank, we're done," he walked out. He did not look back at table 4. He did not look at the cocktail waitresses, or the dealers, or the patrons who were watching him walk. He walked out of the high-stakes blackjack room with his back straight and his hat on and his hands in his pockets. He walked down the corridor to the elevator. He took the elevator down to the lobby. He left the Sands Hotel that night, and he did not come back to that room for almost 6 months. The Rat Pack sat at table 7 for about 3 more minutes. Then they got up too. They left their unfinished drinks. They left the chips on the table. They walked out single file. Dean Martin first, Sammy Davis Jr. second, Joey Bishop and Henry Silva last. The room slowly began to fill back up with sound. Conversation started again. Hesitant at first, then normal. The dealers started dealing. The cocktail waitresses started moving. John Wayne sat at table 4 for another 40 minutes. He won $800. He gave $400 of it to the dealer Edgar Homestead as a tip. He gave another $200 to the cocktail waitress Gloria DeMatteo. He took the remaining $200 and put it back in his pocket. He finished his bourbon. He put on his brown felt hat. He stood up. He walked out. He went to his suite on the 18th floor. He sat in a chair by the window for a long time, looking out at the lights of the Strip. The next morning, he flew home to Newport Beach. He did not tell his wife about Las Vegas. He did not tell anyone. The story should have died there. It almost did. Jimmy Russo was treated by the Sands on-call physician for a bruised diaphragm and a sprained wrist. He was not seriously injured. He was deeply embarrassed. He went back to his own apartment in Las Vegas. The next morning, when Sinatra's lawyer called to tell him that his services would no longer be needed at the Sands and that severance had been arranged, Russo accepted it without argument. He moved back to New Jersey. He worked private security for various clients for another 12 years before he retired with a bad back and a worse knee. Russo never told the story. Not because Sinatra paid him not to. Sinatra never spoke to him again, never paid him a dime past the severance. Russo never told the story because of how he felt about it. The shame did not fade. He had put hands on a 60-year-old man at a blackjack table. He had done it on the orders of nobody but himself. And the 60-year-old man, in 4 seconds, had taught him a lesson about humility that he had not learned in 26 professional fights and 17 years of bodyguard work. So he kept his mouth shut. He went home to his wife. He raised his children. He died in 1991 in Asbury Park, New Jersey, at the age of 68. Heart attack. He never wrote a memoir. He never gave an interview. Sinatra never spoke about it either. Not on record. Not off record. There is no recording, no interview, no autobiography passage where Sinatra mentions December 11th, 1965 at the Sands. He acted in subsequent years as if it had not happened. He saw Wayne 3 more times in his life, at industry events. The 2 men exchanged polite nods. Neither of them brought it up. After Wayne died in 1979, Sinatra was asked at an event what he thought of Wayne as a man. He said only, "He was the Duke. There's nothing else to say." He looked uncomfortable when he said it. The reporter who asked thought Sinatra was simply being respectful of a recently deceased peer. The reporter did not know. Wayne never spoke about it either. He had told Sinatra he wouldn't. He kept the promise. He kept it with his wife. He kept it with his children. He kept it with his closest friends. Pilar Wayne, his wife of 18 years at the time of his death, did not know about December 11th, 1965. She has been asked about it since the story came out. She says she does not believe Wayne would have hidden it from her. She says she is sure he must have told her once in passing, and she forgot. People who know her say she did not forget. Wayne simply did not tell her. Some debts are paid in silence. Wayne understood this. He had been raised to understand it. The Rat Pack, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, Henry Silva, all 4 of them carried the story for the rest of their lives. None of them told it during their lifetimes. They had a code. They protected Sinatra. Sinatra at his worst, Sinatra at his best, Sinatra in between. They did not tell stories on Sinatra. They were old-fashioned that way. The 33 other patrons in the high-stakes room that night were a mixed group. Most of them were wealthy out-of-town gamblers. Some of them told the story to their wives. Some of them told their business partners. The story spread in a small circle of Las Vegas insiders and high-stakes gamblers in the late 1960s. But nobody outside that circle heard it. The patrons themselves did not give interviews about it. Most of them are dead now. The cocktail waitress, Gloria De Matteo, became a casino host at the Tropicana in 1972 and worked there for 24 years before retiring to Henderson, Nevada. She told her husband. Her husband told nobody. She has spoken on record about the night, but only after 1996. She corroborates the basic facts. The dealer Edgar Homestead retired in 1981 and moved to Boulder City. He told his son. His son told nobody. Edgar died in 1989. Rinaldo, the bartender, kept the story for 31 years. He was the one who finally let it out. In 1996, the Sands Hotel was scheduled for demolition. It had been bought by Sheldon Adelson, who planned to build the Venetian on the site. There was a lot of nostalgia in Las Vegas that year. Old Sands employees were being interviewed for newspaper retrospectives. Tour groups were going through the empty rooms before the implosion. A magazine writer named Daniel Hughes, who was working on a long piece about the lost Las Vegas of the Rat Pack era, sat down with Rinaldo. Rinaldo was 75 years old. He was retired. He was tending to his roses in his small house in North Las Vegas. He had agreed to the interview, reluctantly. He liked his privacy, but it was the end of the Sands. He thought maybe it was time. Hughes asked the usual questions about Sinatra, about the Rat Pack, about famous nights, about celebrity guests, about how much certain stars tipped, about who came in drunk and who came in sober. Rinaldo answered politely. The answers were the kind of answers that magazine writers had been getting from Las Vegas old-timers for decades. Then Hughes asked, "What's the one story you've never told anyone?" Rinaldo looked at him. He thought for a long moment. He said, "I will tell you one story, but you must change my name. You must say it was an unnamed bartender. You must say I am dead. I do not want my real name in this. You understand?" Hughes agreed. Rinaldo told him about December 11th, 1965. He told him everything. Sinatra walking across the room. The conversation at table 4. Russo coming over. The 4 seconds. Sinatra leaving. The whole thing. Hughes wrote the story up. It ran in a national magazine in early 1997 under the title, "The Night the Duke Walked Through the Sinatra Storm." It ran with the source identified as an unnamed Sands bartender, now deceased, who witnessed the events from his post. The story exploded. It got picked up by every Hollywood retrospective. It got mentioned in 2 biographies of Sinatra. It got mentioned in 3 biographies of Wayne. It became part of the Rat Pack legend. It became part of the Wayne legend. But for 31 years before that magazine piece, it had been kept. Rinaldo died in 2003. His real name was, for the record, Reynaldo Salazar. He was born in Havana in 1921. He had immigrated to the United States in 1949. He had worked at the Sands from 1952 to 1979. He had served drinks to Sinatra approximately 4,700 times. He had served drinks to Wayne approximately 120 times. He liked Wayne better, though he never said so out loud during his working years. He was a professional. His son, Miguel Salazar, told the rest of the story after his father died. He told the part Rinaldo had not given to Hughes. He said his father had only told the story to one other person. He had told it to Miguel when Miguel was 10 years old. The 2 of them had been sitting in the kitchen of their small house in North Las Vegas. It had been late at night. Miguel had been unable to sleep. His father had been drinking a small glass of rum. He had told Miguel the whole story. At the end of it, Miguel had asked, "Papa, why didn't anybody tell?" Rinaldo had looked at his son. He had taken a slow sip of his rum. He had said, "Mijo, some men want to be remembered for the things they did when everyone was watching. Other men want to be remembered for the things they did when they thought nobody was watching. The Duke was the second kind. So the rest of us, we are the kind who let him be remembered the way he wanted to be remembered. We do not tell, because to tell would be to make him into a story. He did not want to be a story. He wanted to be a man. Miguel had not understood it then. He had been 10 years old. He understood it later. In the years since the story came out, certain details have been confirmed by other surviving witnesses. Gloria DeMatteo, the cocktail waitress, gave a brief interview to the Las Vegas Review-Journal in 1998. She confirmed everything in the magazine piece. She added one detail. She said that when Wayne tipped her $200 at the end of the night, he had asked her, quietly, "Did Mr. Sinatra leave any chips on his table?" Gloria had said yes. There had been about $3,000 in chips left on table 7. Wayne had said, "Make sure those find their way back to him. He earned them. They're his." Gloria had been surprised by this. After everything that had happened, after the public humiliation, after Russo being taken off the floor in front of the whole room, Wayne had thought to mention Sinatra's chips. She had asked, "Why, Mr. Wayne?" Wayne had thought about it. He had said, "Because he's having a bad night, Gloria. We've all had bad nights. A bad night doesn't mean a man should lose his chips." Gloria had taken the chips off table 7. She had returned them through the cashier's office to Sinatra's account. She had signed an internal note about it that was filed and forgotten. The note was found in 1996 in the Sands archives during the closure. Adelson's people gave it to Daniel Hughes when he was working on his piece. Sinatra never asked about those chips. He never knew where they came from. He never knew that the same man who had quietly handled his bodyguard had also quietly returned $3,000 to him. That was the kind of man John Wayne was. There is a footnote. In 1968, 3 years after the night at the Sands, Frank Sinatra recorded a song called Cycles. It was written by Gail Caldwell. It was a quiet, contemplative song about a man looking at his life and reckoning with his mistakes. It was unusual for Sinatra. It was not the kind of song he normally sang. The lyrics included the line, "There are men I should have honored, men I tried to bring down low, but the men who never bowed to me, they're the ones I miss the most." The song was recorded in November 1968 at Western Studios in Hollywood. The recording engineer that day was a man named Eddie Brackett. He has said, in an interview given in 2008, that he asked Sinatra after the session if the song had a particular man in mind. Sinatra had thought about it. He had said, "There was a man at a card table once. He didn't bow." Brackett had asked who the man was. Sinatra had said, "Doesn't matter now. He's still not bowing." That's the kind of man he was, Brackett had not pressed. He had filed the comment away. He had thought about it for 40 years before he repeated it. When Brackett gave the interview in 2008, the magazine piece by Hughes had been out for 11 years. Brackett had read it. He had recognized the moment. He had written down the song lyric on the same page of his notebook where he had Hughes's article. He had put the two together, and he had decided that the time had come to share it. Brackett died in 2011. He left his notebooks to the Country Music Hall of Fame. They are housed there now, available to researchers in the Sinatra-related section. The page with the lyric and the article has a small note in Brackett's handwriting. The note says the man at the card table was John Wayne. Frank knew. Frank carried it. Frank wrote about it the only way he knew how. The song was for Wayne. Nobody knows. Now they know. The Sands Hotel was imploded on November 26, 1996. 11,000 pounds of dynamite reduced the building to rubble in less than a minute. The high-stakes blackjack room on the second floor, with its mahogany paneling and brass chandeliers and Honduran wood ceiling, became dust along with everything else. The site is now part of the Venetian and the Palazzo. There is no plaque. There is no marker. There is nothing to indicate that the most famous unrecorded confrontation in Las Vegas. History happened on that exact patch of ground in December 1965. It is forgotten. It is not forgotten. It is the kind of story that lives in two ways at once. The kind of story that the loud men of Las Vegas and Hollywood do not tell, because telling it diminishes the kind of man they pretend to be. The kind of story that the quiet men of Las Vegas and Hollywood do tell, but only late at night, only to their sons, only when the rum has loosened the tongue and the years have softened the rules. December 11th, 1965. The Sands Hotel. Table 4. 4 seconds. A bodyguard who was the second most dangerous man in the room. A singer who was the most famous man in the room. And the quiet old man at table 4 who turned out to be neither of those things. He was just a man. Just sitting there. Just having a bourbon. Just thinking about an X-ray that might be nothing or might be something. He had not come to fight. He had not come to make a point. He had not come to be a legend. He had come for 3 days of quiet. He got the quiet. The legend came later. Sinatra outlived Wayne by 19 years. He died in 1998. He was 82 years old. The night he died, his last words to his daughter Tina were, "I'm losing." He was talking about the medical situation. But Tina has said, in a memoir she published later, that she sometimes wonders if he was talking about something else. Some old account he had been carrying. He never sang Cycles in public again after 1972. He never explained why. There are certain men who do not bow. There are certain other men who, for reasons they cannot quite explain, never forgive the men who do not bow. And then, sometimes, very rarely, there is the third kind of man. The kind who walks across a casino floor toward a man who has not bowed. The kind who learns something he did not expect to learn. The kind who carries it. The kind who, late in his life, in a recording studio in Hollywood, in the very end of a song nobody quite understood, finally lets himself say, "The men who never bowed to me, they're the ones I miss the most." December 11th, 1965, 4 seconds. That is the story, that is the whole story. The story Frank Sinatra never told, the story John Wayne never confirmed, the story Jimmy Russo carried, in shame to his grave, the story Reynaldo Salazar finally let out in 1996, on the eve of the Sands' destruction, because he had decided that some things should not be lost.